How would you feel if you were made a laughing stock in front of everybody? How would you feel if you were brought down solo? This was how I felt when I was paired up with primary school pupils. At the age of 7, I'd always loved to play football, but I didn't start to play until I was 9. I was very confident in my ability to play this sport, but my ability itself said otherwise. I would usually pass the ball to the opponents, score own goals, and do a lot of nonsense on the pitch. Because of this, a lot of people don't like to play with me. And if you had me on your team, it would seem like having a burden on your team. Sometimes, even the coach would substitute me for long periods of time because I couldn't play so well. And because of this, every time after participating in this sport, I would feel very unhappy and sad. Then a fateful day came. I went to school ready to play sports. I had already dressed up, and I was ready. After we had warmed up, my coach decided to single me out to play with primary school pupils. At that time, I was in year 8, and the students that I was paired up with were in year 2 and year 3. Everybody looked at me and laughed. My juniors laughed, my seniors laughed, and everybody was laughing at me. I was demoralized. I felt dejected. I felt miserable. That day, I went back home in tears with the intention of never playing sports again. Later on a different day, I came to school with no intention of playing sports, and I spotted some people playing volleyball. And it really piqued my interest, so I decided to go and try it. Of course, I wasn't good at it initially, but with training and consistency, I was able to get very good at that sport. One thing that helped me to overcome this obstacle with football was the connection I had with other people. At that time, I had a support system which consisted of my family and my friends. And these people were there when I needed somebody to rely on. Having supportive people acts as a protective measure against difficulties and will allow you to express your emotions, to clear your head, and to get possible solutions to what you are facing. At that point in time, I wasn't really able to control my emotions, and this led me to make rash and irrational decisions, like immediately quitting football. But looking back at it, I realized there was one thing I was able to control, and that was my thoughts. I was able to look at my situation from a different perspective. When I saw those people playing volleyball, of course I was hesitant, but then I thought to myself, I may not be so good at football, but what if I'm better at volleyball? And this allowed me to overcome what I was facing at that point in time and try out that new sport. So being able to change your perspective and change how you see things will allow you to see opportunities where you saw difficulties, and will allow you to see the bigger picture than what you are currently facing. One of the major differences between my experience with football and my experience with volleyball was my confidence. I was able to learn from my prior situation and use what I've learned into the new sport I began, which was volleyball. When I started to play, there were people that would just love to discourage me by saying things like, "You're not even good at this sport. Why even playing here today?" But because of that confidence I had attained and trained, I was able to stand firm in this midst of negative emotions and discouragement, and I was able to become the best version of myself. I was also able to develop a strong sense of character. But what exactly is character? Character is how people live out what they believe to be true. People with character usually have a strong sense of values and beliefs, and they are comfortable sticking to those values and beliefs. One thing that we are bound to experience when we go through difficulties is doubt. We begin to doubt ourselves, begin to doubt our abilities, and this really holds us back. When I started to play these new sports, I would always doubt myself, and I would doubt everything I do. And the doubt didn't start when I started playing this sport. It originated when I started to play football. And this really held me back, and it affected my ability to play this sport well. But then one day, I decided to say to myself, I'll be the best at this sport. And I continued saying it repeatedly and repeatedly, and from a saying, this became a belief. And gradually, I began to live out in that belief and act on it. And with thorough training, I was able to become very good at that sport. The ability to bounce back from difficulties isn't something that you're born with. It isn't in your genes. It isn't selective to people. This ability is something that you can train with intentionality and time, like building a muscle. We all have moments in life when it seems like everything is going perfectly fine, then it takes a sharp turn for the worse in the blink of an eye. If you find yourself in a similar situation, I advise you to reflect on these 4 tips mentioned above, and I assure you there will be nothing that you won't be able to overcome. With this, I leave you with a short quote. It is your reaction to adversity, not adversity itself, that determines how your life story will develop. Thank you.